Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bright Founders Talk at Temy. Temy is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. As usual, my name's Matthew, and I'm fortunate today to be joined by Mr. André Alcalde, who is the founder of a company called CELUS. How are you today, André?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me today.
And thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be with us. André, before we get going, why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
Sure. So let me talk a little bit about that. So my name is André. I'm one of the co-founders at CELUS. I'm originally Brazilian, and I come from the electronics industry. So I graduated originally in electronics engineering. And I've worked in the industry for quite some years, both as developer of hardware and also with component manufacturers. And in 2018, I had a great pleasure of meeting my two other co-founders, and we thought that there is something to be done on this industry. There is something that can be done to improve the way that engineers work on developing new electronic boards, new electronics products, pretty much to the same way that software development has changed a lot in the past years. So we started CELUS at 2018 with a mission to accelerate the electronics development and support engineers on the selection of components and on the development of schematics for their designs.
Fantastic. So an interesting start. You've got two other founders you mentioned. Can you tell us a little bit about when you met? How did your idea come about? You said you noticed there was a need in a market. How did you get started with this?
So that's actually a pretty interesting story because we didn't know each other beforehand. So we got to know each other through one of the networks that is pretty strong here in Munich. It's called the Unternehmertum network. So they're kind of a foundation. They're connected to the university as well, but they're also separated a bit. And the thing is, my two other co-founders, they were studying, they were working on some ideas out of the university that also went in the same direction of improving the way electronics engineers works. And I was coming from a different direction. I was coming from the industry. I've been there. I've done that, let's say like this. I worked as developer. I suffered with a lot of manual work, having to read. There's some documents. Whenever you're doing an electronics design, you have to find the right components for your design. And the way that engineers still today do this is they're basing on their own experience or their peers' experience to identify what are the right component manufacturers, who may be offering what I'm looking for, who is offering a certain sensor that I need for my design, who is offering a certain microprocessor. And then they have to go to the websites of those component manufacturers. They have to download documents called data sheets, and then they have to read through it to understand what that component exactly does. So I come from an industry where I had to both use those component data sheets, but also working with component manufacturers where I had to actually create those component data sheets. I know how big the pain is to go through them to try to find the right component for my design. And so when we basically met through a Slack channel from this network. We pretty quickly came to synergy on the ideas, and then we started working together. That was around May 2018.
Fantastic. That's great. So you identified a need. We know the industry can be pretty complex. So you started to work together in 2018, and tell us about the beginning. Was it rocky? Did you have a good general response from your target audience? How did things go in the beginning?
I think that the beginning was definitely rocky. I think that for most of the startups, the beginnings are very rocky. You don't have a lot of resources. You have a lot of ideas. So you have to filter down. You have to decide what's going to work or what you think is going to work and what you think is not going to work. And you have to be pitching your idea basically everywhere. You want to, bring attention of the industry to what you're doing so that you can get your first customers and users talking to you, to understand what their needs are, if they're aligning with the idea you have from the market. Because one thing is you worked on the market, you worked on the industry, you think you know what the pain is, but you have to be able to scale. So whatever product you're developing, you need to be able to scale. It's not to fulfill only your needs, but it's to fill the needs of the market. So in the beginning, we were basically, attending to a lot of different events. We were pitching our idea. We were, calling companies that we knew already, companies that do not have a very deep familiarity with electronics, but do need to develop electronics as well for their products. And those were the first customers. Those were the first companies we were talking to understand, what do they actually need to develop electronics quicker and faster. And as it went out of that part, so the first year was pretty rough when it comes to resources. In the end of the year, we were able to close our first rounds with angel investors. And that gave us a little bit more air to breathe, also to start hiring our first employees, and then to scale a little bit more on the sense of talking to those customers and understanding what they wanted to have. And at that point, we had a lot of different ideas of how can we actually accelerate the electronics development process. There are lots of different ways that you can do this. And we identified that a lot of the software that is out there, what we call the CAD software, like computer-aided design software, they already supported engineers to a certain extent on doing their job, but there was a part of the development process that was not covered by anyone. And that was really the initial part of the design, where you have to go over so many different options of components. You have to identify what are your component candidates. You have to try to get as much information as possible out of those data sheets so that you can do an optimized design. With all the pressure that comes from the market nowadays, we need to deliver smarter products, faster and cheaper to the market. So that plays a big role on getting these designs optimized in the end. So we started then identifying that this part of the design, where engineers have to select their components, have a lot of opportunity for improvement. There was no competition, no different software that would offer similar value proposition to engineers. So that's where we started actually looking more deeper. How can we actually collect information from these data sheets? How can we help engineers on selecting the best components for their designs quicker? That's where we started developing. That's where we started creating the organization around, this problem, this mission is what we wanted to tackle. And since then, we have been developing then our online platform that does exactly that.
So you brought up a lot of very interesting things there, a lot of key points that we can touch on, from bringing in your first staff after your first round of funding to staying relevant with market competition and how quick it's changing. So let's begin there, in fact. I'm talking about the market. It changes fast. There's competition. You've got to be out there on top of your game all the time. Tell us, how do you stay relevant and up to date?
That's a very, very interesting question. So from our side, we try to bring the features quickly to the market. We try to identify very quickly if that feature, if that product will bring value to the customer, because on this industry, we see that there are different types of players when we think about the electronics industry. So what I was saying is that several of those big companies who develop and deliver those CAD software I was mentioned previously, they have some trouble following up with the market development, with the agility on the market. We see that some of those big CAD software, when we try to integrate with them, we talk, with those companies, we figure out that some of those code bases, they're pretty old. They date back to the 90s. And that means that for those companies, developing those software, they have a really big code base they have to deal with. And they are not in the position to basically throw everything away and start something new using newer technology. So when we're talking about, keeping up to date, one of the advantages we have is that we had the opportunity to start developing something from scratch, already using very modern technologies. So our platform is basically cloud-based. So we already leverage all this technology around cloud-basing, around being able to scale computational resources on the cloud, which is something those other companies cannot do. We are also applying a lot of the newest technologies when it comes to machine learning. And I think one of the very important aspects of machine learning when we're talking about it on keeping up to speed, not letting the competition get, is being able to collect and maintain data which is specific for our use cases. I do think that data for specific use cases is still one of the main contributors to competitive advantage. And this is one of the things that we are focusing a lot on.
I don't know, I'm not such a technical person, but I'm pretty much sure that there's nothing that was invented in the 90s to do with computers and software that's still relevant today. So I can imagine there must be a hell of a lot for these guys to go through. One of the things that comes up quite often, one of the common threads that comes up in these discussions is surrounding ourselves with the right kinds of people to make these ideas possible, to make these things happen. You've told us that you have 2 other founders, but tell us a little bit about your team and about having the right mindset to progress.
Yeah, I think that the team is the most important thing when it comes to developing a product, putting it out there, making sure that we can go after a specific value proposition and deliver it also to our customers. This is something no one can do alone. You have to have a very, very strong team working together, working as a team to be able to bring such a big, big value then to the market. So we have right now at CELUS, we have about 80 employees. We have different departments within the company, but we have also very, very strong leadership team. We have very strong management team, and we also make sure that the company is very, very multicultural, because I think that this helps a lot on making the right decisions. We may not proceed with decisions as quickly as it could, but with a multicultural team, with people with different mindsets, people with different backgrounds, we can make sure that every decision we do does consider different perspectives, so that we're not all biased in the same direction. We try to tackle bias by basically having people from different backgrounds, from different technical backgrounds, but also cultural backgrounds. I think that this also helps a lot, the company moving in the right direction. And I'm extremely proud of the team that we could build over all these years. People coming from all around the world, from basically everywhere, and I'm really proud of that. So I think that this is one of the strongest things that the company, like as a startup, can also have, because this gives you the possibility of making the right decisions and also progress pretty quickly on the direction of delivering that value to the customer.
Maybe we can talk a bit about yourself. I know that you've also relocated. If you have any advice for somebody starting a big idea, a big project, living in a country that is maybe different to the one you were born in, any advice? How do you fit in? What do you do to keep yourself sane and focus on your targets?
I can tell a little bit about how it worked for me. When I moved to Germany, I moved here not to start something, but I moved here to work on the industry as an electronics engineer. And this is something that I always wanted to do. I wanted always to have something to develop something myself, to bring something also to the market. And but when I moved here, I kind of identified that if you're not speaking the language, if you have to learn a bit more about the culture, those are extra obstacles that you have to surpass to go over it. And for me, that was kind of a challenging aspect. But I think that the important thing for anyone, trying to start something on a country different where they were raised, is that do not get intimidated by the fact that, you may not speak the language initially, or you may not understand everything about the culture, because I think that every country has people starting new things. You have innovation everywhere. The important thing is getting to know how those things happen on that specific country and going after it, not losing the momentum, not losing the motivation, not letting this kind of obstacles demotivate you, because there's always a way. You can work on different ways, but there's always a way to pursue this targets, these objectives. And I think that everyone can do this anywhere in the world. It's just a question of how much time do you invest on growing yourself on that direction, how much time do you want really to bring that, and the time you put basically on it, the efforts that you put on it. It can be pretty challenging, but I think it is possible.
That's great. It's lovely to see, if I can, a success story, to have an example and say, look, guys, you can do it. All these boundaries that we set for ourselves, we can break. So thank you for sharing that personal journey with us. André, before I let you go, a last one now, if we can, just maybe touch on the future a little bit. Tell us, without giving away any company secrets, what are you looking at for the future? Where do you see things going? What are you going to be focusing on?
So I think there's still a lot to be done on the industry. If I'm talking about the electronics industry as a whole, we're tackling one of the problems that exist out there. But if we look as a whole, the market wants to have more products, smarter products, in an increasing rate. So everyone is expecting everything to be smart, to be connected, to be very responsive. So this puts a very, very big load on companies developing electronics to move faster, to try to optimize their processes, to try to make this process more efficient. Because an interesting fact that I didn't mention before is that although the demand for electronics is increasing pretty quickly, the amount of electronics engineers that we see out there graduating, coming out of universities, really going for this type of career is reducing. So there's still a lot of engineers out there who are expected to go in their retirement in the next years. So how are we going to tackle this big issue? People expecting a lot from the market, and the other side, the amount of people who are able to design those things being reduced so strongly. So there's still a lot to be done. We are tackling this part right now, but there's many other parts we also want to tackle in the future, so that we can streamline the development of electronics, so that we can make it as agile, as quickly, and as accessible as it is the software development nowadays. So we can see anyone who wants to get started with software development, even if they didn't go through university studies yet, they can do that. They have so many resources online. It's so easy for them to get started. We want to bring the electronics development process to the same type of accessibility, to the same type of ease and simplicity, so that people can develop on it, and we can have also more products that are quicker and easier to develop than they are nowadays.
That's fantastic. That's great consumer advice. So if anybody out there is wondering where to go, if you're wondering what to study, there's something that you can look into. André, I want to say thank you from myself and on behalf of Temy for sharing your journey with us, for being so candid and open. We do appreciate it, and we will be keeping our eye on you and wishing you the best for the future.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you again for having me today.
Fantastic.